So I went through single-family residential and how we can invest there, and we can split benefits, and it's a great place to be, but it does take some time, some effort. So what are some other ways that we can invest? Let me break it down this way for you. Over on this column here, I'm going to call this one-off. One-off. What do I mean by one-off? I mean one investor to one asset. So I might own one turnkey property. I'm the owner. I'm the investor. Whether I use all my money or I use bank money or private money, one-off investment. I may be a lender. So we talked about I may be a lender to a borrower for one property. That's a one-off deal. What I'm going to compare that with would be syndications, and funds. Other ways that we also invest our money that have benefits, but also some negatives. And I think it's good to flesh those out. Again, as I said, there's no perfect investment design. Nothing in the world is perfect. Everything has offsets or sometimes some downsides. We have to always weigh those based on who we are, where we are in our life, and our portfolio. One-off, one investor, one asset. Syndications, lots of doors, so we call multifamily apartment houses doors, lots of doors. It could be self-storage, lots of doors, mobile home park, lots of lots of doors. And in a syndication, the dollars are coming from multiple people. With funds, a fund can be invested in multiple assets and can also have many people putting their dollars in those multiple assets. These are both participations. A one-off with only one investor and one asset is not a participation. You own, control the whole thing, whether it's equity or debt. So these two would be participations. So again, the difference between a syndication and a fund is a syndication is going to invest in one primary asset, larger than I would want to invest in myself. An apartment house, multiple doors, again, self-storage, multifamily, one asset with a street address, with an ability to get inspection reports and know how this one asset's being purchased and what the game plan is. What's the value add? What's the exit strategy of this owning, buying, investing in this one asset with what we call a deal sponsor, the operator. A deal sponsor is the operator who is typically the person who goes out and finds these syndications or the assets in a fund that we can look at and see, well, what's inside that syndication, what's inside that fund? You know, is that something that we like? Is that an asset class? Is that an opportunity that we like? After we study, we look at it. The funds, as I said, the fund is really what we call like a blind pool, meaning there are some restrictions on what that fund can invest in. Typically, in our case, we're looking at real estate, but again, it could be all kinds of real estate. It could be houses, it could be slices of participations in other syndications. So you can see what we're doing is we're going from one-off to syndications of funds. We're increasing our diversification the further to the right we go. Here, one house, I'm not very diversified, but I got all the control, don't I? I got all the control. Syndication, I'm taking a participation so I can put a little bit of money in this syndication, this one, so I can diversify to some extent, but it's one asset per syndication. Over in the funds, now I've got slices potentially of lots of different deals that this deal sponsor or fund manager has access to because of their network, where they are in the space. Real estate alternative investments is all about the network. It's all about the network. It's inefficient. So the people that I know that I bring into our network are people that are fund managers, they are syndicators, and they have their network up here, meaning they're going to conferences where those people meet. And so we are just leveraging a network from here to here to here, but also at the same time doing the vetting and due diligence to make sure we're working with people, as I said earlier, that are the right who's. They've got the track record. We even put our syndications and funds through an investment review committee made up of a securities attorney and 2 other fund managers and myself, that we look at the syndications and funds that we let into the group, because these are by nature much more complex to underwrite than a house. House, any of us could do that. You can hire an inspector to look at a house and pretty well know, is this a good house or a bad house, right? How much should I pay for it? Not hard for any of us to learn how to do this relatively quickly if we want to do it. Over here, much more complicated. We're dealing in an arena here where the people who are involved in these typically have much more knowledge than we do. And that's a kind of a scary place to be in. When you're dealing with people who have much more knowledge, then you better have somebody around you that can help guide you and say, these are things to look at. And that's what we do, because this is an arena that I don't even have time to go down and go deep into the syndications or funds. I'd be the constraint. And I want to have the opportunity here, because there's certainly a lot of opportunity here, but one-offs, and I have a lot of one-offs in my portfolio, they too take time to keep up with. Even being a lender, you got payments coming in, right? I mean, it's not a bad thing to have mailbox money and you got to stamp, deposit only, but it still takes some effort. You've got to keep your money turning if you're a lender. Houses, even with good managers, you still have to manage the manager. There is some semi-active hands-on, and we're very frank about that. Again, you got the control, but you got a little more time there. If that's not for you, then probably syndications or funds make more sense. But again, how do you know? What's a good syndication? What's a bad one? What's a good fund? What's not a good fund? There's a lot of people that are putting money into deals left and right today, and there's crowdfunding and everything else, and I think most people don't have a clue what they're doing. And the only reason why more deals haven't blown up is because the market's still, maintaining, the air. As soon as the air falls out, what they say, when the tide reverses, we see who's wearing clothes, right? And a lot of people will be naked. So being very careful and knowing what we're investing in if we're going to do this, because it's easier to get into these, but you got to know what we're getting into. Putting money into a syndication, typically these are going to run 3 years, 5 years. We've been in some that have been run 7 years. Your money, your principal, is going to be tied up for that period of time. Now, that's not a bad thing to have some money tied up long term, because as I said, I want some growth. But I don't want all my money tied up in something I can't get to, because I want some liquidity. So balancing what money's in growth or places where it's going to stay longer versus having some more liquid capital is something we try to do. Funds, still you're going to tie your money up for some period of time, but typically about half the time it's going to be tied up here. Funds can run anywhere from 6 months to 3 years, maybe some on the outside 5 years, but mostly, like 1 to 3 years. 7 years in here. Lending deals, short term, 12 months or less. Could do some that are 3 to 5 years. Owning property, typically I tell people, if you're going to buy good, solid turnkey properties and leverage those with the historically low long-term interest rates we have today, you don't want to do this for less than 5 years. And I've owned properties, single family, for 30 years. It's a long-term investment. So where I put my money based on what my needs are, my growth, my cash flow needs, tax arena, these are all things that each individual has to decide. I would never tell any of you, we'll all go do funds this month. No, that's not how it works. We have to be very specific about where each one of us is putting our money and why. So that's an overview of the alternative investments. Now, inside of funds, again, as I said, it can be equity, it can be debt related. We have one trusted advisor makes his whole market in buying non-performing, non-performing, defaulted paper, defaulted secured contracts from the big banks. Chase, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Citi, they buy defaulted paper. Well, wait a minute, defaulted paper. Homeowners that for various reasons stop making their mortgage payments. The big banks don't want the reputation of being meanies, meaning going out there and foreclosing on homeowners. They want to be the good guys. So what they do is they take their defaulted paper, after they made some collection attempts, tried to get the borrower back on track, and they sell in big tranches their defaulted paper. It's secured by houses all across the country. And what they do, their company, they make a market for buying those, doing the analytics, buying that paper at a discount to market, big discount. It's like, well, it's like buying a house that is uninhabitable. The roof's caving in, but it's maybe in a good street, but it's going to need a whole lot of work to get it working again. So you aren't going to pay a lot of money for that house, are you? You're going to look at, well, what are the values of that house when it's fixed up? I'm going to buy it way down here because I'm going to have to put a lot of money into it. It's going to take some time, and I'm going to have some risk involved, so I'm going to buy it way down here. Well, that's what they do. They buy this paper at a huge discount, and then they do the financial workouts. They go back to homeowners. They bought it at a big discount. They can renegotiate now with the homeowner and give them a lower interest rate, lower their payment, extend terms. They've got so much room to do this that that's their first goal, is to keep people in their houses. Now, some people, things are just blown up so badly in their life, they got to move. So they either move on their own, or in some cases they foreclose the property and then they do what I said earlier. They just wholesale it off to somebody else and get the money back in the fund. I've been involved in some of those, and it's a lot of work. I never want to do that again. So I just invest in the fund with Dave and his group, because I've been there, I've seen their culture. He's been doing it for 13 years, and they're awesome at it. I don't want to spend a lifetime trying to learn what they do. Why would I want to? So I just piggyback on their expertise. They need our capital to go buy these, and they pay their overhead and make their profit, and there's still plenty left over to give to an investor. That's what a good investment does. A good investment is bought at enough of a discount or has enough of a potential value add that there's money for everybody. The ones that don't work out today are the ones where people still have money coming at them hand over fist because everybody's looking for a deal, right? And they're buying properties that there's no more margin left. They're buying them way up here at the top with no value add, just hoping that this market keeps running. And those are the ones that are going to flip when the market resets, and there's no more juice in those deals, and those deals will start turning bad to some extent. So understanding what we're buying, what we're investing in is very, very important.